glad to see that other people can't get enough of politics, just like me. So thank you all for coming. What a wild ride we've had. And I just want to make a few references back to things we never thought we'd see way back in January. We never thought we'd see a governor that was popular turning back and running again and suddenly turn the Senate race into chaos. We never thought we saw 2 billionaires in Florida willing to spend whatever they had to win nominations, one on each party. We never thought that we would see the sitting Attorney General defeated by an upstart businessman with a, shall we say, cloudy record. We never thought we'd see 200 women running for office in Florida this time out, for a lot of offices. And we never thought we'd see an untested, brand new female candidate upset the lieutenant governor of the state of Florida. So many things we didn't know, but some things we did know, and we could see way back in last summer that there was unrest in Florida and the economy was driving a lot of that. It started with the Tea Party surfacing after the Congress members came back home in the summer at the town hall meetings. We had one here in our area with Kathy Castor. And you saw a movement starting to formulate, and you started to see the unemployment numbers inch up, and the home foreclosures inch up, and anger starting to build. And even in the heat of Florida summers, you saw a level of activism that we haven't seen in Florida in the summer in a long time. People willing to sign petitions for whatever. And in fact, we had 3 amendments on the ballot, driven by petition signatures, all of which could be interpreted as ways of getting even and getting at elected officials across the state. We also had a record number of debates. And I don't need to tell you about the ads. I was telling somebody the other day, a lady told me, she says, I'm ready for hemorrhoid ads. I've had enough of the others. So, seriously. But as you probably gather, if you're your gut feeling that you had a feeling that this was the most negative TV advertising ever in the history of Florida or the nation, you were right. Poll after poll documented that as well. The tone of the ads and the content and the frequency just about drove all of us crazy. But when all is said and done, the sad part is that they tamped down turnout. And we could see that in the primary as well. A lot of people in polls that we've taken here said that they didn't vote because there wasn't any candidate worthy of voting for. And I mentioned a particularly harsh campaign between Alex Sink and Rick Scott, which featured probably the record negative toned ads of all. And if you haven't looked at the numbers, at least, I looked at, it was early yesterday, at least 50,000 people in Florida, maybe higher, passed by the governor's race that had voted for the U.S. Senate. A lot of that is simple, discussed with both candidates, or on the part of some Republicans saying, I can't vote for my candidate, or vice versa. We had major brouhahas that questioned the integrity of both of the gubernatorial candidates by the time the election was over, and most of that was done through advertising. We saw unprecedented local and early voting to the point of where we now know you have to run 2 campaigns in Florida, the before early voting begins and the after. And I have to give high fives to Florida's election officials, even when it looked like we were going to have a recount as our hours waned on. The bottom line is there was a lot of comfort and people knew that it could be taken care of and we would not have a repeat of the 2000 election. But what I'd kind of like to close with is talking a little bit about the elements of both the Senate and the governor's race, which are enticing and intriguing to the nation at large. The Senate race had some very interesting dimensions. A 3-person race, an independent, a viable independent. But why was the international media so interested in this race from day one? It reflects back to Florida's diversity. the fact that we had a Cuban American, an African American, and yes, the grandson of the Greek immigrant white guy, all running for office, for the top office on the ballot, in a state that's still regarded as the most must-have, large, big, competitive state in the country. As to the governor's race, of course, and let me back up a step, another intrigue of all of the Senate race, which yielded a theory that people will be debating for some time, was initially we thought the schisms were within the Republican Party of Florida between the Tea Party and the regular Republicans. By the end of the Senate race, the most problematic schism was clearly within the Democratic Party over the treatment of Kendrick Meek versus Charlie Crist, whether it be donations or endorsements, etc. And so, as to the governor's race, we knew it was going to be close from the get-go. We had an opportunity to have a path-breaking first female governor of the fourth largest state in the country. But on the other side of the aisle, we had the opportunity to have the state's first African-American Republican lieutenant governor. The bottom line is, both of our races, the Senate and the governor, were seen as path-breaking kinds of races which would alter stereotypes of both parties. Finally, I want to take a little bit of a chance to say there's three things that I teach my students that you have to look at when you're doing predictions. One is voting patterns, the second is registration and party ID, and the third, of course, is turnout. And the bottom line is Florida, like the country, shifted a bit towards the conservative side of ideology. The exit polls clearly show that. But the real problem was the turnout problem. And this explains what happened in all of the down ballot races. It explains why Alex Sink lost as well, even though she ran, in my judgment, the best campaign of any Democrat in the country to come that close. I got to say, I know I'm leaving, but the turnout was terrible for Democrats in urban areas. It was really high in the rural and suburban counties, particularly in Long I-4. Why? It comes down to two things: unemployment rate and foreclosures, and I'd add a third, predictably low turnout of young and minorities in midterm elections. There you go, a little bit longer than 7, but pretty close. Thank you.